Hi everyone, it's Friday, so it's welcome to Talking Family History with Michelle and Fiona.
And it's my turn to read the news on the 26th of May, 2023. So as usual, we're going to start out with updating the majors, and then we'll get into the other odds and sods that are here, there and everywhere from the archives. So the big news really is that it's everybody's been busy with the coronation, I suspect. So there's only a couple of actually completely new data sets at Ancestry, and that's the Atlanta, Georgia Catholic records for right up to 1980, so that's pretty good. And down the very bottom, you'll see the Hampshire, England BDMs, so the parish registers from 1536 to 1812. So I'm sure that'll be of interest to some of you. Of course, the usual update. Sorry.
Yeah, I have to say, last night I was working with a client and we were in Hampshire, and it was just like, this is so good. I'm sure these are new records. That was really good.
They really are new. And I'm just going to put your face on the screen so I can see you now. Hello.
Hello.
It doesn't stay there though. So the other things are stacks and stacks of updates sort of globally. So always if there's a key area that you're interested in, it's just that reminder to once a month go in and check if there's new finder graves or new obituaries. Here's some extra Austrian church registers that have been indexed. So lots of things there to have a look at. And even for you, Fee, there's some Edinburgh, Scotland rolls, whatever an extent roll is, because you can tell I don't do any Scottish research. But the really big news in the last fortnight was the release of over 400 new African-American DNA communities. It's a really big deal for helping people find their slave ancestry. And being the descendant of a West Indian slave, I thought it was particularly interesting and important. So I wanted to make sure I drew everybody's attention to it, because globally this is an important aspect of understanding our colonial history, whichever side of that history we were on. In my case, I've double checked all my father's DNA kits that I actively went out looking on this particular branch of my family to find dad's second cousins. And I know we come from a Bantu region of Africa. Unfortunately, none of them have enough to match these new communities as yet, but I know that will come one day. And over at GeniaNet, a subsidiary that Ancestry have owned for a couple of years now, I think it might even be 3, there's a whole bunch of new Central European records. So Austrian, Hungarian, Slovakia and Romania. And they do go back into the 16th century. So again, folks, something to go and search. You don't have to have a subscription to search these data sets. And of course, if you find something that's particularly of interest to you, then you might want to pay for a subscription. Over at Family Search, there's a range of new locations, nothing updated for Australia and New Zealand, understandably. We're quite a small fish in the pile of records around the world. There's a census from Guam. Over in the UK, there's been parish register indexing updates. So another couple of nearly 3 million Irish Catholic registers. And I'm sure as Egg's going to go and have a hunt for that for my Cork family that elude me regularly. And then, of course, up in Cumberland, would you believe, the one region I'm also stuck in England. So I'll be looking at both of those over the weekend. Over though in continental Europe, if you are not watching the Giro and fully familiar with the locations in Italy, I feel sorry for you, because it's been beautiful the last few days traveling virtually around Italy, but lots, and we've been in Venezia. That's where we actually were yesterday. I'm watching them with my mum, and we were in Treviso earlier. So look, there are lots of Italian, but there's German records too, and Belgium, Sweden. So hopefully some of us will have this of interest. There's even some Russian records, particularly the Lutheran ones at the top look interesting, but some big chunks of data there available. Biggest, of course, being the 76 million German Lutheran records from 1500 to 1971. Over in the US, they have a lot of additional records. So I'll leave you to have a look at the different states, and then we head over to Mexico with some interesting early records. Again, 8.5 million Catholic records from Puebla and 3 from, I'm going to try and pronounce that, Querétaro. My apologies if I get that wrong. over in the Caribbean, though, lots and lots of local records. I'm waiting for some from Barbados. If somebody wouldn't mind finding them from around 1800, I'll be really happy. And then South America is a long, long list of records. And again, a big data set there of 26 million Catholic records from Colombia, right up to 2018. And from Peru, church records from 1603 to 1992, there's nearly 21 million of those. And wait, there's always more. So lots of other countries. The biggest set here is Bolivia, 9 million. The regular Friday night emails have covered 2 topics from Find My Path since we last recorded, some Scottish records last week and some Manchester ones this week. So just quickly to have a look, people from Nanshire. I hope that's how you say it, Fee. Is it how you say it?
That's funny because I don't think I've ever really thought about how to pronounce it because I don't go and research in that particular county.
There you go, caught you out, finally at last. Anyway, lots of transcriptions. It's from the northeast of Scotland, so I didn't even know where it was till I read this. I mean, I actually have family that live in Scotland, but I just haven't been up that far. They also have some parish registers, and I heard about these, but look at them, 1290 to 1850 from this region, and that's their PDFs still, so they'll be browsable, but really worth going and having a look. And then a focus on the Boer War records. As people down under, this is a place for us to go and check, because actually a lot of our people that did go away, our records haven't been well retained in Australia and New Zealand archives, but you may find they turn up in the up-over versions of them, because at that stage we hadn't federated in Australia and New Zealand was still deciding where they were going to go with us or not with us in that 1890s period. So
and
well,
also an important set just in case you're missing someone from the 1901 census, because this can be totally a reason why they are not there, and you are finding that the wife is there with the children and she's not showing as a widow. So where is the husband? Well, he could well be off in South Africa.
Yep, I hadn't gone there, so thank you for that, because that was, yeah. So I've had, all my Boer War people are from actually Sydney. So I hadn't thought about that being on a branch up over, and I've got one of those who say wife is the head of the household. So now I must go and have a look. Thanks for adding to my work for the weekend, Fee.
Sorry about that.
The Greater Manchester rate books, and I don't know how many of you have ever bothered to look at rate books, but they're really invaluable because you do see the change of ownership of the land, and sometimes that's actually other family as well. So don't go, oh, well, you know, I know when they live there and I know their address. I would always go and have a look. I have seen the rate books at my local council for land I grew up on. Absolutely fascinating, the people in the street and the changes that happened. So do make sure, if you have ever got the opportunity to look at rate books, that you do.
Can be a great way also, Michelle, of finding out who owned the property, who may be the person who appears in the newspaper talking about said property or renting out said property, which can add so much to your social history.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, is we don't often fully understand the context of the record because we don't always understand the social history. So you may have noticed Fiona and I do bang on about that a fair bit. I haven't looked up what sort of inquisitions these were, but because I haven't had time today, but it is interesting that that's the early 20th century in Lancashire. I think I want to go home now and click on the links, but I'm in the office and I have lots of other things on my books at the moment. But lots of newspapers. So to go with last week, there's a couple of Scottish new releases, as well as the others you can see here, different time frames, and they've updated a number. And then this week they've added some more local records from around that Lancashire area, Bolton in particular, different time frames. And yeah, it's a case of you just have to keep up with the list. If any of them are in the area you're interested in, you'll notice they've done a double whammy, a new paper for Grimsby, as well as updating the county times for that area. Over at My Heritage, apart from new records, their biggest news...
I've just looked at those inquisitions. Sorry, you distracted me.
I'm sorry. Do you want to go and tell us what you just saw?
Well, I've just had a quick look. So they look like they're coroner's records. and from coronial inquisitions.
Inquests. Okay, so that makes sense, because I look at inquisitions and I just think of religious persecution in Spain and places like that.
There you go.
So thanks for that, Fee. The theory of relativity is a algorithmic process over at MyHeritage. It gets updated roughly annually, unlike the similar service over at Ancestry called Through Lines, which is updated every 24 hours. So it's quite big news that they've updated this, tweaked the algorithm to improve it. I actually have less theories, so they've got rid of some of my erroneous ones. I have a few there I'm not happy with, but I was going to say, I've actually discovered my grandfather's not the child of his father. So I removed that branch from my tree. But out of respect for the people who are grandchildren of the known person, I've not attached my grandfather to any male ancestor at MyHeritage. So MyHeritage is popping in the old bloke who isn't, and assuming and giving me lots of matches on that. So I've always been mindful. I also found another one who's that I'm supposed to be related to this person on my New South Wales side. And the person died in 1998, and that's, 20 years before nearly Ancestry, MyHeritage, my apologies. They didn't start selling kits in Australia till November 2017, so it's nearly a 20-year gap. It can't be the person that's on the tree, and it's the first time I found that at a MyHeritage DNA match in my matches anyway, that it's actually clearly not attached to the correct person in the tree, which mucks up the theory as well. The good thing on their site is you can reject any theories you don't agree with. And so it's a really nice tool that you can just look at the confirmed ones and do the work you need to do to enhance your tree, or you can look at just the new ones and not focus on the ones you've already rejected. The other thing they've done too is that in the US, there's Memorial Day on the 30th. It's usually on the Sunday. So it'll be the 27th, if I get the 28th, can't even get the dates right. So they're giving us free military records for this period. So they're already currently available right now as we record. And for those of you not in the US, but maybe in Australia and New Zealand who are watching, it'll be available to you till Wednesday because of that time difference. New records, though, are from Finland and Spain and Belgium. Quite a reasonable chunk from Finland, nearly 7 million. And then lots from the US, Wisconsin, Missouri, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Biggest set there is really the births for Missouri and the births for Nebraska, pretty big. And then over in Kansas, we've got a small starter set of obituaries that are free. And then you've got Wisconsin deaths and marriages and some high school records from Minnesota. The main news, though, from the genealogists in the UK is they have a blog post about new records for removal of graves and tombstones. Something we don't see a lot in some other countries, but in the UK, they do have a time limit on most of their burial sites. I know my grandparents' plaques were removed after 10 years. So if I hadn't been shown where they were buried, I wouldn't know. And that's quite common in a lot of the cemeteries there, that many of you won't realise this. So they've added some copies of records as they're being rolled over, so to speak, and removed, and particularly common actually in not just headstones, but also in crematoria. A post well worth reading to educate us down here about how things can be handled differently up there. But in the newspaper world over in Australia, there are lots of new Victorian and South Australian newspapers coming up. I'll leave this on for a little bit so you can have a look, but particularly of interest for those that later period too. I look at those and go, oh, I can't wait to go and have a look at the Western Press, in fact, which intrigues me. There's Camperdown, but that time frame is of interest to me. Over in South Australia, the Hills and Valley Messenger, the Hills Gazette. So a specific region is being focused on, along with the Port Lincoln Times. But they also update their magazines and newsletters digitisation projects and their books. I'm particularly interested in the architecture journals, but that's my bag. But also there's the books and pamphlets from Canberra Grammar School, and I giggle at that and think, I wonder if I'm going to find my cousin in there who went to Canberra Grammar. The other big one, though, that to me is the most interesting is the Diaries of the 19th Century Handwritten Manuscripts Project. And I'm sure the Migrant Diaries Project will be of interest as well. So they're in the near future going to be released. So well worth having a squiz back at Trove. Over in the archives in New Zealand, it's more an interest than news. It's 6 years since they started a project of conservation of documents that are not necessarily kept or treasures in the way Europeans do. And I do encourage you to go and have a read of the blog post, and the link will be in the notes below in the video, of some of the nuances of respecting First Nations people's archives and how they're handled. And so there's an exhibition that was held. It's still up there. And I do encourage you to go and have a read that, just for a widening of your viewpoint of the world, really. And over in Victoria, particularly of interest to quite a few of you, I'm sure, is they're asking for feedback on the record keeping for the Coroner's Court. You've got till the 9th of June. And for the Transport and Planning departments, and you have till the 13th of June. So if either of those, and particularly the coroner's stuff, I'm sure will be of interest to the professional researchers who watch this, you might want to make sure you place some comments in, because you don't have too long to go and check that out. Not much has happened with the National Archives in the UK, kind of understandable with the coronation. Really has taken a lot of attention, and they're coming up to summer, and it's not often a focus to do a lot more work archivally that attracts people, because they're out in their gardens and enjoying the nice weather. So a few things to look there, particularly looking at early sugar consumption, if you want a bit of social history. But also the nurses who were disabled in the First World War as a project that was developed is of interest. They're probably the things most interesting to most of us. Over at 23andMe, they added some new groups. And so this is a Mexican focus. And I've had a couple of clients with this area, so it will be really interesting to see their results and how that's improved. So it's nice to see an update over at 23andMe. And I do hope you're keeping your eye on the Family Histories podcasts. Fiona should be on this coming week, because I've been watching them get released, and we've just had the Glazier, and I'm pretty sure she's the Constable coming up.
That would be true.
And I believe that this is also coming up soon, Fee.
It is. It's just about finished in the shop. I'm just thinking I want to record you a little help for organising something extra I want to sneak in there, but it'll be there very soon.
Excellent. And you're the busy one at the moment, because you're also talking on the 7th of June at 2. I didn't add me, and I'm talking 7th of June at 10 p.m. my time, but it's fully booked, so I thought it wasn't worth it putting an ad up. But you're going to talk about another 4 sources for New Zealand family history.
I sure am. So that'll be over on Legacy Family Trees. You'll find the link down below here.
Yeah, exactly.
So make sure you've got it registered. Remember, it'll be free for about a week to be able to watch. But yeah, catch it and see what you think.
So that's us, Fiona and Michelle, for another fortnight of the news we've come across in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, if you've got any ideas of things that you'd like us to cover, or you want to let us know about something, feel free to drop it in the comments down below. We'll catch those later on, and maybe you know about something that we don't, and we'd love to be able to share that.
So meanwhile, please thank you for watching. Don't forget to press subscribe and button, and please share with others so more people will keep up with the genealogy news for the English speaking world. Thanks for watching. Bye.